Hello future bureaucrats. Today we are going to talk about what is current affairs. The current affairs is something that is often used word, that is often repeated, often discussed. You must have heard it so many times. But what is current affairs? What are the boundaries within which you can define the meaning of the word current affairs? Now see, before we understand what is current affairs, we can break down this particular word into two parts, that is current as well as affairs. Now what is current? Current is present, the times that you are living in, the present times that you are living in. We are living in 2022. So this is going to be current for us. And what is affairs? Affairs means whatever is happening around you, be it at international level, national level, local level, in different parts of the society, in different sectors of the economy. Now we are talking about COVID lockdown. So that is an affair. So that is a happening that is going around us. So when we are learning about what is happening in present, that is what is called as current affairs, the present happening. So now we have understood what is current affairs. We need to know what is current affairs in the perspective of UPSC. See, the UPSC every year comes out with a new question paper. And unlike your school question paper or college question paper, where most part of your questions are from static part, UPSC have to keep updating their question paper. So just like they have to update your question paper, similarly, you also have to keep updating your knowledge about the happenings around the world. That is where you have to keep updating your current affairs. Now, example I'll give you for you to understand this better. It would become part of your general knowledge to know who is the US President. Who is the US President? Joe Biden. Now that is your general knowledge. But if I would say, how is the President of the United States elected? How do you compare the process of election of United States President with the process of election of Indian President? What are the difference between the system? What are the similarities between the system? What are the pros and cons? And how these respective systems are serving their country well or badly? The way, when you get into this particular part, when you read more about it, when you compare, and when you keep updating yourself with whatever contents or new information that is coming out in the system, that is how your current affairs keeps evolving, and that is what is expected you of as a UPSC aspirant. Like I said, unlike your question papers in the college or in school, where most of the questions are going to be static, it is going to be right out of the textbook. In here, the content within the textbook keeps changing every day, because every day the newspapers are coming. Every day the new events are happening in this world. So you have to keep updating yourself. You have to build a base, which is going to be a static part. And on that, you have to keep updating as and when the society, the system, the new events keeps getting added to it. So that is how important current affairs is for UPSC aspirant. So now in this segment, we are going to talk about the sources from where we can source our current affairs. See, I would like to classify the sources of current affairs into two parts. One is going to be primary and the second one is going to be secondary. Now the primary source would be PIB. Now PIB, you can call it as God's mouth or the horse mouth, because in PIB, through PIB and on the platforms of PIB, the government talks to the people. The government speaks its mind to the people. Now what do you want to become? You are a UPSC aspirant. What does UPSC select for? The UPSC is selecting for future bureaucrats for the government, right? So what does the government think? Why does the government think? How does the government plan to do it? They put all these things on the PIB platform. So as a UPSC aspirant, if you want to update yourself with what is happening, it is very important that you need to keep reading PIB on daily basis, link by link, without missing one particular word from it. I mean, there are so many examples from the past question papers where careful reading of PIB would have only helped you to solve that particular paper. Now we will talk about the secondary source, that is the newspaper. Now one good thing about covering the entire primary source, that is the PIB in its entirety, would be that 50% of your newspaper will automatically get covered, because most of the newspapers, most of the very good newspapers in India, they are directly reporting from the PIB. They are directly reporting. So you must have come across certain news in the newspaper articles, such as India's export has seen an increase or India's current account deficit has widened. Where do you think these people are getting these news from? These people are getting that news from PIB only. They are not getting it from anywhere else. So you have to read PIB. But when you come to the secondary source, that is the newspaper, when 50% of that newspaper gets covered because you have read PIB, what is the remaining 50% composed of? The remaining 50% of the newspaper is always composed of perspectives, of different viewpoints, of different ideas on the same article. Now, I'll give you one example. You must have come across a lot of climatic change, climate change related news in the newspaper recently. Much of what is reported about India's position in say Glasgow conference on climate change, that must have come from PIB, because that is where the government puts it. That is where the government declares what kind of position they will take in that particular climate conference. But in order to understand more about it, in order to get different perspective, whether India's stand is good or bad for the world, for the country, in order to understand more about it, you might have to rely on the newspaper, because in newspaper, a lot of experts, a lot of bureaucrats, a lot of retired bureaucrats, a lot of policy wonks, they write their opinion. So when you read that particular opinion, you will get a different perspective. Some of the very good newspapers to actually read from is Hindu and the Indian Express. The Hindu has got an excellent editorial, and generally people find it difficult to understand Hindu at first. But I know people who have started reading Hindu for the first time when they started preparing for UPSC, and they cleared UPSC with top ranks without having any background in reading in Hindu before they started preparing for UPSC. So when you start reading papers like Hindu, you might find it difficult in the beginning, but it is very important part of your preparation. You must read more from Hindu as well as Indian Express, so that you can develop different perspective on the same issue. I'll give you one example to make you better understand. You know, recently the Hindu had reported one particular news article called the urban heat island effect. Now, what is urban heat island effect? I'll tell you. During summers, when you step out of the house, if you're living in cities, when you step out of the house, you would have experienced a lot of heat around you. And to escape that, we usually get back into our rooms, turn on our ACs, and if you're working, then you must be sitting inside your office cubicle for a long time under the influence of ACs. You won't realize. But if you're somebody who's out there on the road, you will realize that it is very hot. But if you are living at the outskirts of the city, then you will realize that when you move from the city to these outskirt places, which is more green, you will see that the heat has come down. Now, why this is happening? This is happening because this effect called urban island heat effect. Urban island heat effect happens because there is more construction in the city. Because of the concrete construction, it retains more heat, it reflects more heat. Now see, this becomes the part of your dynamic as well as static part of your current affairs. I'll tell you how. When the sun rays comes, they come in long wave radiation form, but when they're reflected back, they are in short wave radiation form, so it is more intense in nature. So when in the city, inside the city, when there are so many buildings, these buildings, when they reflect the sun rays, it becomes short wave radiation form, it becomes more intense, the amount of heat that is around you that increases, and that is the reason why you feel very hot inside a city, but when you move away from the city, it becomes more cool. Now this has been reported in the Hindu. Now you can connect this with climate change, which is reported on PIB. You can use this to write an answer. You can use this to solve prelims paper. So this is how different sources have to be used to build up your static as well as your dynamic part of the knowledge. And it is very important that the perspective that you get from the newspaper, the static knowledge that you get from the PIB has to be mixed and matched, and then that balance, when it develops, that is the kind of answer that the UPSC is expecting. That is how newspaper and PIB is very important part of your current affair preparation. So the third segment, in this we are going to talk about how the current affairs is going to be a game changer for UPSC. So one thing that you must understand, that if you take the question paper for last 10 years, you will see that in last 10 years, the kind of questions that were asked in UPSC has undergone a sea change. Because 10 years back, 12 years back, 15 years back, the kind of questions that used to come in the question paper used to be coming from the static part. Now, for example, when did Akbar rule, or who was the first ruler of Mughal Empire? So these were the static questions that used to be asked in the UPSC question paper. But today, that is not what is expected of those people who are appearing for UPSC. What is expected of people who are appearing for UPSC? They are expected interested to understand the present issues better. To understand the present issues better, it is important for us to learn what has happened in the past, which is fixed, which is going to be there. So it is important to understand what has happened in the past, how it has influenced the present, and how can you make it better for the future. So it is going to be your ability to make things which are not fixed or which is bad today in the future that is going to determine your ability to get selected in this exam. So to understand what is happening today, to understand more about it, it is very important that you need to keep yourself current affairs updated. And to update your current affairs, it is important that you must take it from the horse mouth, which I said recently, that is Press Information Bureau, PIB, where the government speaks to the society. And to understand different perspectives to what is coming on PIB, it is also important to read from the newspaper. See, think about this and think about this very carefully. When you read PIB, when you read newspaper, you must have come across different reports. Now recently only, yesterday only, there was an article in the newspaper which said that a particular committee that was formed by the government to understand that the 8 lakh limit, how reasonable it is to be fixed for economically weaker section, that report was prepared. Now these are big reports. If you go online, if you download these reports, you will see that these reports run into 200 pages. As a bureaucrat, you will be expected to read these reports, to understand these reports, and to make a presentation out of these reports. To read 200, 300 pages report, you need to develop a habit for it. And you can develop a habit for it only when you develop a habit for it now, when you develop a habit for it when you are preparing it. So these things, that is reading Press Information Bureau, reading newspaper every day, updating your current affairs out of it every day, these are the things that is going to prepare you once you become UPSC aspirant. And that is the reason why current affairs are going to be a game changer for UPSC in times to come. So I hope that I have been able to make you understand the importance of current affairs and why current affairs is going to be a game changer for UPSC. I hope that I have been able to impress upon you the importance of reading newspaper every day, the importance of reading Press Information Bureau every day. And I really hope that whatever I said is going to add value to your preparation. And I wish you all the best. And I hope that many future bright bureaucrats emerge from the small inspiration that I was able to give you through this particular video. Thank you.